The day before Thanksgiving, my son-in-law snarled, "You're useless. Tomorrow we're shipping you to a nursing home. You're done." I quietly packed one bag and walked out at dawn. At the facility, a young woman stared at me, made one call, and whispered, "Dad, I found him. Yes, it's really him." Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Harold Patterson. I'm 68 years old, living in Lake Oswego, Oregon, a quiet suburb of Portland, where the neighbors wave at you whether they mean it or not. I spent 35 years as a head chef, the last 15 running the kitchen at the Willamette table. I always believed that feeding people was the most honest work a man could do. Put good food on someone's plate, and you've given them something real. I also believed that family was everything. Turns out I was only half right about that. My daughter Laura and her husband Derek Mitchell moved into my house 3 years ago. "Just temporary, Dad," Laura said, her eyes soft with concern. "You shouldn't be alone in this big house." The house, 4 bedrooms, 2 stories, bought in 1989. Worth about $847,000 now, according to the assessor's letter that mysteriously ended up in Derek's hands last spring. I also have $124,000 in savings, the result of decades of early mornings and aching feet. Derek is 41, works as a mid-level manager at some tech company downtown. He's got this habit of checking his phone while you're speaking to him, then looking up with a smile that never quite reaches his eyes. "Sorry, what was that, Harold?" Always Harold, never Dad. Laura is 39, my little girl who used to help me in the kitchen, standing on a step stool to stir the gravy. She had a laugh that filled the whole house back then. I don't hear that laugh anymore. These days, she speaks in a careful voice, always glancing at Derek before she answers any question. Like she needs permission to have an opinion. The change didn't happen overnight. It crept in like fog, rolling off the Willamette River. First, Derek suggested I should consolidate my finances. For convenience, he said. Then came the power of attorney. "Just in case something happens, you know, so we can help you manage things." I signed it a year ago. Laura stood behind him, nodding. I trusted my daughter. Then came the small humiliations. My workshop in the garage became Derek's home office. My favorite chair in the living room became Derek's spot. The thermostat got set to whatever temperature Derek preferred. When I made dinner, my specialty, the thing I did professionally for 35 years, Derek would push the food around his plate and order takeout. No offense, Harold, but I'm in the mood for something with actual flavor. I started spending more time in my room, carving wooden birds. Steller's jays, spotted owls, the little chickadees that visit the feeder outside my window. At least the wood doesn't talk back. At least the knife does what I tell it to. The day before Thanksgiving, I was in the kitchen preparing the turkey. My grandmother's recipe, perfected over 3 decades of professional cooking. I had the bird brined and ready, the herbs laid out, the butter softening on the counter. This was my domain. Even Derek couldn't take this from me, or so I thought. He walked in around 4 in the afternoon, phone in hand as always, but this time, he actually put it in his pocket. That's when I knew something was wrong. Derek only stops looking at his phone when he's about to say something he considers important. "Harold, we need to talk." I kept my hands on the turkey. "I'm listening." "Laura and I have been discussing your situation." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "We think it's time you moved somewhere more appropriate for your needs." I looked up slowly. "My needs?" "Sunset Grove. It's a nice facility, very highly rated. They have activities. Other people your age?" He smiled that empty smile. "We've already handled the paperwork. Tomorrow, after Thanksgiving dinner, we'll take you over there, get you settled in." Laura appeared in the doorway. My daughter, the girl I taught to crack eggs and fold dough. She stood there with her arms wrapped around herself, and she didn't say a word. "Tomorrow," I repeated. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. "The day after you eat my Thanksgiving dinner in my house, you're going to dump me in a nursing home." Derek's smile flickered. "Don't be dramatic, Harold. It's an assisted living facility, not a— You're putting me out to pasture." I wiped my hands on a towel, slow and deliberate. "In my own house, the house I bought, the house I paid off, the house where I raised Laura." "The house," Derek said, and now his voice had an edge. "That's too much for you to maintain. Face it, Harold. You're useless now. You can't take care of this place." He stepped closer. "The documents are already signed. It's happening. Accept it." I looked at Laura. "Do you have anything to say?" She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the floor. That silence told me everything I needed to know. "All right," I said. I picked up the towel, folded it neatly, placed it on the counter. "I understand." Derek blinked. He'd been ready for a fight. "Good. That's mature of you, Harold. I'll finish the turkey. You'll have your Thanksgiving dinner." I walked past him, past my silent daughter, toward the stairs. "Good night." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my room, surrounded by my wooden birds, and I thought about what it means to be useless. I thought about 3 decades of feeding people, of creating something beautiful every single day. I thought about the house I built this family in. At 5 in the morning, while the sky was still dark, I packed one bag, just the essentials, some clothes, my medications, my carving knife, and a half-finished chickadee. My wallet with my ID and the one credit card I'd kept separate, the one Derek didn't know about. They wanted to put me in Sunset Grove. Fine, I'd go to Sunset Grove, but I'd go on my own terms, not theirs. The November air was cold and sharp. I started walking toward the bus stop, my breath making small clouds in the darkness. I was done being useless. I was done being a burden. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The bus to Portland took 40 minutes in the early morning quiet. I sat in the back, my bag on my lap, watching the streetlights give way to the gray dawn. The city was just waking up. Delivery trucks making the rounds. Coffee shops turning on their lights. Normal people starting normal days. I thought about the last time I'd ridden a bus. Must have been 15 years ago when my car was in the shop. Back then, Laura was in college, calling me every Sunday to tell me about her classes, her friends, her dreams. She wanted to be a teacher. She had this vision of working with kids, making a difference. Somewhere along the way, that dream got replaced by Derek's ambitions. Now she works part-time at his company, doing what he tells her to do. The bus dropped me 2 blocks from Sunset Grove. The facility was a long, low building, surrounded by careful landscaping. The kind of place that tries very hard to not look like what it is. I arrived at 7:30, half an hour before they officially opened. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in and sat down in the lobby. The chairs were comfortable, I'll give them that. Soft blue fabric. Wide armrests. Designed for people who might need help getting up. I sank into one and set my bag at my feet. The lobby was quiet. A reception desk sat empty, a computer screen glowing with a login prompt. Framed photographs lined the walls. Smiling elderly faces engaged in activities. Painting, gardening, playing cards. Everyone looked so happy. I wondered how many of them had been put here by their own children. I don't know when the tears started. One moment I was fine, the next my cheeks were wet. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, embarrassed, grateful no one was around to see. "Sir, are you all right?" I looked up. A woman stood near the reception desk. Maybe early 40s with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore a lanyard with an ID badge. Her eyes were kind, concerned. "I'm fine," I said, which was obviously a lie. She walked over and sat in the chair next to mine. Not too close, just close enough to talk quietly. "I'm a social worker here. My name is Hannah. Can I help you with something?" I'm here to check in, I said. Move in, whatever you call it. She tilted her head. Do you have an appointment? The admissions office doesn't open until 9. My family made arrangements. They were supposed to bring me tomorrow, but... I shrugged. I decided to come early. I see. She was studying my face now, not judging, just paying attention. May I ask your name? Harold Patterson. Something changed in her expression. A slight widening of the eyes, a catch in her breath. Her face went pale. I'm sorry, I said, confused. Did I say something wrong? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket with trembling hands and pulled out her phone. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then at me, then back at the screen. Harold Patterson, she repeated slowly. 68 years old. Former chef. From Lake Oswego. That's right. A strange feeling was growing in my chest. How do you know? She pressed a button on her phone and held it to her ear. Her voice came out as a whisper. Dad, I found him. Yes. Yes, it's really him. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She ended the call and turned to face me. Her eyes were wet now, too. My name is Hannah Wells. 43 years ago, my mother's name was Virginia Patterson. The world tilted. I gripped the armrest of my chair. Virginia. My first wife. I was a year old when she left you. She told me you abandoned us. She said you didn't want me, that you never looked for me. Hannah's voice was shaking. When I turned 18, I found the court documents. The custody ruling, the restraining order she filed with false accusations, the agreement where she refused your child support in exchange for no contact. I remembered. 3 months of trying to see my baby girl. Letters returned unopened. Phone calls that went to voicemail. Virginia's new husband. Wealthy, connected. Made it clear that I should disappear. So I did. I built a new life, but I never forgot my first daughter. I've been looking for you for 25 years, Hannah said. Patterson is such a common name. And you moved, changed jobs. She laughed, a wet sound. I became a social worker because of you. Because I wanted to help people who fell through the cracks. Hannah. It was the first time I'd said her name out loud in 42 years. I never stopped thinking about you. I have a box in my closet. Your baby pictures, your first pair of shoes. She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was strong, warm. The man I just called, Marcus Wells, he's my father, not biological, but the man who raised me. He's a lawyer, estate and property law. She squeezed my fingers. Tell me why you're really here, Harold. Tell me why you were crying alone in a nursing home lobby on Thanksgiving morning. So I told her. Everything. Derek's contempt, Laura's silence, the power of attorney, the plan to move me out so they could take my house. When I finished, she asked a simple question. Do you want to fight back? I thought about Laura, who used to help me stir the gravy. I thought about Derek, who looked at me like an obstacle. I thought about my house, my savings, my life, everything being carved up while I was still breathing. I thought about this stranger who was also my daughter. Yes, I said. I do. Hannah smiled. It was a real smile. Then let me introduce you to my dad. Marcus has some thoughts about protecting elderly clients from financial exploitation. She stood up, still holding my hand. Happy Thanksgiving, Harold. I think this year you have something to be grateful for. I looked at her. This daughter I never knew, this gift I never expected. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than tired. I felt ready. Marcus Wells arrived at Sunset Grove that same afternoon. I don't know what I expected. Maybe awkwardness toward the man who was technically his daughter's other father. Instead, I found a tall man with silver hair and a calm, measured presence. He wore a gray suit that fit him like a second skin and carried a leather briefcase, worn smooth from decades of use. He shook my hand firmly and said, Hannah has told me about you her whole life. I'm glad she finally found you. We sat in a private meeting room that Hannah arranged. She brought coffee and sandwiches, though I could barely eat. My stomach was tight with anxiety and something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a yellow legal pad. "Tell me everything," he said. "Start from when Laura and Derek moved in." So I did. 3 years of small humiliations, documented in my memory like recipes I'd perfected through repetition. The power of attorney I signed, because Derek said it would make things easier. The joint account he convinced me to open for convenience. The way mail addressed to me started disappearing. Bills I never saw, statements that never reached my hands. The documents I was asked to sign without reading, always with Derek standing over my shoulder. I'd trusted my daughter. That trust had been weaponized against me. Marcus took notes in a neat, precise hand. When I finished, he set down his pen. "You've described a textbook case of elder financial abuse," he said. "Under Oregon law, this is serious. The Elder Abuse Prevention Act has real teeth. Criminal penalties, civil remedies, the works. But here's the important thing, Harold. You still have options. A power of attorney can be revoked at any time by the person who granted it, as long as they're mentally competent." "I'm competent," I said, sharp as I ever was. "I can tell you the exact ratio of herbs in my grandmother's turkey stuffing, the current prime rate, and what I had for breakfast 3 Tuesdays ago." Marcus almost smiled. "That's good, because we'll need to prove it if this goes to court." He leaned forward. "Here's what I recommend. First, we revoke the power of attorney immediately. Second, we find out exactly what Derek has done with your finances. Every transaction, every transfer. Third, we protect your assets with proper legal structures." "What kind of structures?" "A living trust. It transfers ownership to a trust you control as trustee. You still have full access, but it creates a legal barrier. Anyone trying to access those assets would need to go through the courts." He paused. "I should be transparent. This is what I do for a living. I've handled dozens of cases like yours. Your son-in-law has likely been planning this for a while. The pattern is too deliberate to be coincidental." Hannah's phone buzzed. She frowned. "Someone named Derek Mitchell is here, demanding to see Harold Patterson. He's being aggressive with the staff." My stomach tightened. That didn't take long. "He doesn't know you're in this room," Hannah said. "Should I have security escort him out?" Part of me wanted to see his face. That moment when he realized I wasn't the passive old man he thought I was. But Marcus shook his head slightly. "Not yet. Let him wonder where you are. Let him panic about what you might be doing." "Smart man," I nodded. Hannah left to handle it. Through the door, I heard Derek's demanding tone, Hannah's calm responses refusing to bend. A few minutes later, she returned, looking more amused than concerned. "He's gone. Threatened to call police for kidnapping, then a lawyer for elder abuse." The irony wasn't lost on me. She sat down. "He also said, 'That old man has dementia. He doesn't know what he's doing.'" "Dementia," I repeated. "That's convenient from a man who couldn't tell you what I did for a living if his BMW depended on it." Marcus was already writing. "We'll need a cognitive assessment from an independent physician. Can you handle that?" "I can take any test they want right now." "Good. Tomorrow morning." He closed his notepad. "I'm also recommending a private investigator. Brett Collins specializes in financial forensics. If Derek has been moving your money, Brett will find every penny." That evening, Hannah drove me to a small apartment she'd arranged. Temporary, furnished, quiet. She helped me carry my bag and showed me around the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, with grab bars installed. "I know this isn't your home," she said, "but it's safe, and it's temporary." I looked at the clean space, A kitchen I could cook in without commentary, a window facing east toward the sunrise. "It's perfect," I said, and I meant it. After she left, I watched the last light fade from the Portland sky. Somewhere across town, Derek and Laura were probably eating my turkey, wondering where I'd gone, wondering what I knew. Let them wonder, let them panic. I picked up my half-finished chickadee and started carving. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of meetings, documents, and revelations that made my blood run cold. The cognitive assessment came first. A doctor in Southeast Portland. Someone Marcus chose specifically because she had no connection to either family. Put me through 3 hours of tests. Memory, reasoning, attention, language, problem solving. At the end, she looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "Mr. Patterson, your cognitive function is excellent. I'd put you in the 95th percentile for your age." She handed me the official report, stamped and signed. "Anyone who claims you have dementia is either misinformed or lying." I tucked that report into my growing file of ammunition. Brett Collins turned out to be a sharp-eyed man in his mid-30s who spoke in numbers and spreadsheets the way I spoke in recipes and cooking techniques. He had the calm focus of someone who enjoyed hunting, and his prey was paper trails. We met in Marcus's office on a rainy afternoon, a thick manila folder between us. "Here's what I found." He slid a page toward me, columns of numbers highlighted in yellow. Over the past 14 months, Derek Mitchell transferred $47,300 from accounts he had access to through your power of attorney. I stared at the number. Nearly half my savings. Gone. Where did it go? 2 primary destinations. Brett pointed to highlighted sections. First, $23,800 went to BMW Financial Services. Monthly payments on a 2023 X5, registered to Derek Mitchell. Base price around $62,000. The BMW. I remembered exactly when he brought it home, pulling into my driveway with that self-satisfied grin. He'd told Laura they got a great deal on financing. Now I knew the truth. He'd used my money. Second, $18,500 went to Tech Venture Partners LLC, a startup investment fund based in San Francisco that's currently under investigation by the Oregon Department of Justice and SEC for potential securities fraud. He gambled my money on a scam. Allegedly. The investigation is ongoing. Brett's expression remained professionally neutral. The remaining $5,000 went to miscellaneous expenses, upscale restaurants, designer clothing stores, and a weekend trip to Las Vegas. I sat back in my chair. For 3 years I'd been living like an unwelcome guest in my own home, while Derek funded his lifestyle and his dreams with my money. Marcus spoke up. "We've prepared all the documents. The revocation of power of attorney. Once filed with Clackamas County, Derek loses all legal access. We've also drafted your new will and the living trust. Rachel Turner can notarize everything this afternoon. What about the money he already took? We can pursue civil action to recover the funds. Sue Derek directly for the $47,300 plus damages. But more importantly, what Derek did constitutes financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult under ORS 124.100. That's not just civil. That's a Class C felony, up to 5 years in prison. Criminal. My son-in-law was a criminal, and my daughter had watched it happen. Rachel Turner was a no-nonsense woman in her early 50s, with reading glasses and a notary stamp worn, smooth from use. She walked me through each document with professional efficiency, confirmed I understood everything I was signing, and notarized with practiced precision. "You're all set, Mr. Patterson," she said when we finished. "Your assets are now protected under the Harold E. Patterson Living Trust." That afternoon, I went to my bank personally. The branch manager updated my accounts while I watched. Mr. Derek Mitchell is no longer authorized on any of your accounts, she confirmed. If he attempts access, in person, online, or by phone, he'll be denied and flagged for our fraud review team. I walked out into the gray December afternoon. Weak sunlight was breaking through the clouds. It was done. The reaction came faster than expected. The next morning, barely past 8, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Derek standing there, face a shade of red I'd never seen, somewhere between rage and panic. His jaw was clenched tight, hands balled into fists, a vein pulsing in his forehead. "What did you do?" His voice shook with barely controlled anger. "Good morning, Derek. You found my new address? Would you like to come in for coffee?" My card got declined. At a gas station. In front of a line of people, his voice rose. "I had to call Laura to bring cash." "I imagine about as embarrassing as being called useless in your own kitchen." His eyes narrowed. For a moment I saw the real Derek, the coldness beneath the charm, the calculation behind the smile. "You vindictive old..." He caught himself. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted to something oily and reasonable. "Look, Harold, I understand you're upset, but we're family." "Family," I repeated. "Is that what we are? Laura's been crying every night wondering where you went." He stepped closer. "Whatever these people have been telling you, whoever that woman at Sunset Grove is, they're manipulating you. They want your money, can't you see that?" I thought about Hannah searching for me for 25 years, about Marcus helping without asking for a cent. "Derek," I said calmly, "leave now. This isn't over. I'll get a real lawyer. I'll prove you're not competent. That woman has brainwashed you. Her name is Hannah Wells. She's my daughter. My first daughter, actually." Derek's face froze. His mouth opened, then closed. The color drained from his cheeks. For the first time since I'd met him, Derek Mitchell had absolutely nothing to say. "Get off my porch," I said, "before I tell the police about the $47,300 you stole." I closed the door and listened to his footsteps retreat down the walkway. A car door slammed, an engine started. He was gone. Then I smiled. The game was just beginning. The day before Thanksgiving, Derek's counterattack came 2 weeks into the new year. I was sitting in Hannah's apartment, going through old photographs she'd kept. Baby pictures I'd never seen, school portraits spanning 2 decades. When Marcus called. "He filed for emergency guardianship," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Claims you're mentally incapacitated and being manipulated by unknown parties who've isolated you from your family." I set down a photo of Hannah at her high school graduation. "Unknown parties. That's creative. There's more. He's alleging that your recent financial decisions, revoking the power of attorney, changing the will, blocking account access, are evidence of cognitive decline. He has a declaration from Laura stating you've shown signs of confusion and memory loss over the past year." Laura. My daughter had signed papers against me. The same daughter I taught to ride a bicycle, who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. The same daughter who stood silent while Derek called me useless. "What do we do?" I asked. "First, you get a full cognitive evaluation. I've already scheduled an appointment with Dr. Chen at OHSU. She's the best neuropsychologist in Oregon. Her report will destroy their incapacity argument." Marcus paused. "Second, we prepare our evidence." Brett finished his financial analysis. "The numbers are damning. $47,300 withdrawn from your accounts, used for Derek's car payments, and a failed startup investment. That's not family support, Harold. That's elder financial abuse under Oregon law." "And third?" "Third, we use the ace Hannah found." I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Derek's petition states you have no surviving close relatives besides Laura." He checked the box that says, "No other immediate family members." That's a material misrepresentation to the court. I looked at Hannah across the room. She was watching me with that steady gaze I was beginning to recognize. My own stubbornness reflected back at me. Because of Hannah, I said. Because of Hannah, and she's your biological daughter. The DNA test confirmed it last week. Derek either didn't know about her or assumed no one would find out. Either way, he lied to the court. Judges don't appreciate that. The cognitive evaluation happened 3 days later. Dr. Chen was thorough. 4 hours of tests, questions, puzzles, memory exercises. At the end, she looked at me over her glasses and smiled. Mr. Patterson, your cognitive function is above average for your age group. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sharp, and your judgment is sound. She typed something on her computer. My report will state unequivocally that you are fully capable of making your own financial and personal decisions. Whoever is claiming otherwise is either mistaken or lying. One obstacle down, the witness statements came together over the following week. 3 former colleagues from the Willamette table provided declarations. My sous chef of 12 years, the restaurant manager, and one of my line cooks who'd worked with me until my retirement. Each of them described me as organized, reliable, mentally sharp. They mentioned specific incidents from the past few years that demonstrated my competence. Brett's financial report ran to 30 pages. Bank statements, transaction records, traced payments. The $47,300 trail led directly to Derek's BMW dealership and a tech startup called Next Level Dynamics that had folded 6 months ago. Derek hadn't invested his own money. He'd invested mine. The hearing was set for late January. I spent the days before it staying with Hannah, learning about the daughter I'd missed. She told me about her childhood, her career, her failed marriage, her decision to become a social worker. I told her about the restaurants, the thousands of meals, the satisfaction of feeding people. We found common ground in unexpected places. She loved to bake, it turned out. Her apple pie was exceptional. The day before the hearing, Laura found me. I was leaving Hannah's building when I saw her waiting by my car. The old Toyota I'd finally retrieved from my house while Derek was at work. She looked smaller than I remembered, hunched into her coat, her face drawn. "Dad? Laura? Can we talk? Please?" I studied her for a moment. The daughter I raised, now a stranger. "Go ahead." I didn't know what Derek was planning. The guardianship, the money, I swear I didn't know the details. He said he was protecting us, protecting the family. He said you were getting confused, that you needed help. And you believed him. She stopped, swallowed. I wanted to believe him. It was easier. Easier than what, Laura? Easier than standing up for your father? Easier than asking me directly if I was confused? Her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If you could just drop the case, come back home. We could work this out as a family." I saw it then. The real reason she was here. Not guilt. Not love. Fear. Derek had sent her. They needed me to back down before the hearing exposed everything. "Laura," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you had a choice. You stood in the kitchen doorway and watched Derek tell me I was useless, that he was throwing me out of my own house. You said nothing. You signed papers calling me mentally incompetent. You chose your husband over your father. Dad, you made your choice. I unlocked my car. Now live with it." I drove away without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I could see her standing alone in the parking lot, arms wrapped around herself, just like she'd stood in the kitchen doorway 2 months ago. The trap was set. Tomorrow it would spring. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, that particular smell of old paper and floor polish that all government buildings seem to share. I sat at the respondents' table with Marcus beside me. Hannah was in the gallery, right behind us. Derek and Laura sat at the petitioner's table with their attorney, a nervous-looking man named Krantz, who kept shuffling his papers. Derek wore his best suit and his most sincere expression. Laura stared at the table, avoiding my eyes. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She reviewed the documents in front of her, then looked up. "This is a hearing on the petition for emergency guardianship of Harold Patterson. Mr. Krantz, you may proceed." Krantz stood and launched into his presentation. Harold Patterson, elderly, isolated from family, making erratic financial decisions, possibly under the influence of unknown parties. He entered Laura's declaration into evidence. Her statement about my supposed confusion and memory loss. He painted a picture of a vulnerable old man being manipulated. When he finished, Judge Morrison turned to our table. "Mr. Wells?" Marcus stood with the ease of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. "Your Honor, the petition before you is not just baseless. It's fraudulent. And I will prove it." Derek's confident expression flickered. "First, let's address the claim of mental incapacity." Marcus handed a document to the clerk. "This is Dr. Elizabeth Chen's comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation of Mr. Patterson, conducted 8 days ago. Dr. Chen is the head of neuropsychology at OHSU and has testified as an expert witness in over 200 guardianship proceedings." He paused. Her conclusion: Mr. Patterson's cognitive function is above average for his age group. He is fully capable of making his own decisions. There is no medical basis whatsoever for guardianship. Judge Morrison read through the report, while Krantz whispered frantically with Derek. "Second," Marcus continued, "let's examine the petitioner's actual motivation." Another document. "This is a financial analysis prepared by a licensed private investigator, documenting systematic withdrawals from Mr. Patterson's accounts, totaling $47,300 over the past year. These withdrawals were made by Derek Mitchell, using a power of attorney Mr. Patterson signed in good faith." He pointed to specific entries. "The funds were used to make payments on Mr. Mitchell's BMW and to invest in a failed startup. Not a single dollar went to Mr. Patterson's care or household expenses." Derek's face had gone pale. Laura looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Under Oregon Revised Statute 124.100, this constitutes financial exploitation of an elderly person," Marcus said. "A Class C felony carrying up to 5 years in prison." "Your Honor," Krantz started. "I'm not finished." Marcus's voice cut through the room. "Third, and most critically, the petitioner made a material misrepresentation in his filing." He held up Derek's petition. "Section 4, Question 12. Does the respondent have any surviving immediate family members other than the petitioner?" Mr. Mitchell checked, "No." He turned toward the gallery. "Hannah, please stand." Hannah rose from her seat. "This is Hannah Wells, 43 years old. Licensed social worker." Marcus paused. "And Harold Patterson's biological daughter from his first marriage. DNA testing confirmed the relationship 12 days ago." He submitted another document. "Mr. Mitchell either knew about Ms. Wells and concealed her existence from the court, or he filed this petition without conducting basic due diligence. Either way, he lied to this court." The silence in the room was absolute. Derek's face had gone from pale to gray. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "Your Honor," Marcus concluded, "this petition should not only be denied. It should be referred to the district attorney's office for investigation of perjury and elder financial abuse. The petitioner is not trying to protect Harold Patterson. He's trying to steal from him." Judge Morrison looked at Derek for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was ice. "Mr. Mitchell, do you have anything to say?" Derek tried to stand. His legs seemed unsteady. "Your Honor, there's been a misunderstanding. I was trying to help my father-in-law. The money was for family expenses. I didn't know about any daughter. You've said enough." The judge's gavel came down. "The petition for guardianship is denied. The court finds sufficient evidence of potential financial exploitation to refer this matter to the Multnomah County District Attorney." She looked directly at Derek. "Mr. Mitchell, I strongly suggest you retain a criminal defense attorney." Derek collapsed back into his chair. Laura was crying silently, tears running down her face. I stood up. I hadn't planned to speak, but the words came anyway. Derek. He looked at me. All the arrogance was gone from his face. All that remained was fear. You called me useless, I said. My voice was calm, steady. You said I was a burden. You tried to throw me out of my own house so you could take everything I spent my life building. I paused. But I spent 35 years feeding people. I raised 2 daughters. I built that house with my own hands. I tilted my head. What did you build, Derek? A pile of debt in someone else's home? He had no answer. I turned to Laura, my daughter, the child I had loved, still loved, despite everything. Dad, she whispered, please, I'm sorry, I'll do anything. Maybe someday, I said, but not today. Marcus gathered our papers. Hannah met me at the gate, her hand warm on my arm. We walked out of the courthouse together, into the pale winter sunlight. It was over. 3 weeks later, I stood in my kitchen in my house, preparing dinner. Hannah was beside me, rolling out dough for her apple pie. The house was quiet now. Derek and Laura had moved out the week before, finding a small apartment across town. There was talk of charges pending, but Marcus said it would likely settle with restitution and probation. I didn't care about the money anymore. You know, Hannah said, crimping the edges of her pie crust, I spent 25 years looking for you. I imagined all kinds of reunions. But I never imagined this. I looked at her. This daughter I'd lost and found, this unexpected gift. Neither did I admitted. She smiled. It was a real smile. So, what happens now? I thought about it. What did happen now? I had my house back. I had my dignity back. And I had a daughter I never thought I'd see again. Now, I said, reaching for the butter, I teach you my grandmother's gravy recipe. Family tradition. Hannah laughed. It was a good sound, warm, real, filling up the kitchen the way Laura's laugh used to, long ago. I had lost one daughter, but I had found another, and sometimes that's how justice works. Not revenge, not destruction, just the chance to start again, with the people who choose to stand beside you. The sun was setting over Lake Oswego, painting the kitchen windows gold. I handed Hannah a wooden spoon, and we got to work. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.